Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome or welcome back, as the case might be. My name is Dalibor Petrovic, and I am the founder of the Summit Leadership Alliance and the host of these TechTonic Conversations. This is a channel where I'm bringing to you conversations with technology leaders, primarily in Canada, both sort of enterprise technology leaders and executives, but also founders and CEOs of Canadian technology startup scale-up companies. Uh, and today we are having one of those conversations on this cold February 18th, 2025. I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Matt Foran. Matt Foran is the co-founder and CEO of KnowMeQ. And KnowMeQ is the educational technology company or ed tech company that solves for the skilling and upskilling challenge or opportunity that we very well know exists across our wonderful country, but actually it exists across all the wonderful countries too. So Matt, first of all, thank you so much for finding time to be with me and us this morning.
A great pleasure to be here with you. And I love looking at what I can imagine is the Kananaskis background that we're looking at today. To all the leaders and listeners and everybody out there, pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you very much, Matt. Uh, I typically do not introduce my guests because, of course, I would do them this service. As a matter of fact, part of the reason what I'm doing these conversations is to actually allow my guests to tell their stories. And I think this is where we should start. I'm really curious to hear from you your personal story. How have you navigated your life and your career to now be a co-founder and CEO of KnowMeQ?
Well, great question. And it's something that I think, like everybody, I'm trying to get better at telling my story. And what got me here today, I think probably my life has been driven by curiosity. I think that I've excelled in different things and I've had challenges with other things, but I've had curiosity that has led me to look at how things could be differently. And like many people, my career trajectory was a bunch of twists and turns, and probably my high school and my university in graduate studies were also a bit twisted in terms of what I was trying to do. And of course, we only, sort of apply the lessons that we learn as we know them. And I think that what I took from my all of my life experiences was that I wanted to learn more. I wanted to do different things. And so um, I came to going into my professional studies in sort of education, in adult education more specifically, in a roundabout way. I did a very unconventionally, I did a business degree that was after having thought that I was going to be a chiropractor and having many years working as an athletic therapist in varsity
Oh,
sports
interesting.
and university, and realizing that there were programs and educational experiences where I had to work 4 or 5 times harder than others to be able to achieve the same outcome. And that there are things that I naturally excelled at that others would have to do that. So I found, I switched from a kinesiology program to a business program where I was able to all of a sudden compete very competitively in apply some of my tenacity and also rediscover some of my entrepreneurial experiences and ambitions. Um, of course, no career trajectory story would be true without or complete without having experience playing music and trying to quit jobs to be able to tour the world with your rock band. And so that's what my brother and I did to try to do that. And unfortunately, we didn't get it, but I got a job at a community college and an adult literacy place to make ends meet while we were trying to get our opening gigs with U2 and Oasis. And
No, oh, come on. Really?
we didn't quite make that level, but we had some good local success here in Toronto and
Well,
played with
look,
some
if
great
we were
bands.
contenders to be the opening gig for Oasis,
No, no,
if
no,
we
no.
just were
That's in our
contenders for it,
minds.
that
In
would
our
have been.
minds.
I'm
In
sorry?
our minds,
Oh,
we were right at the
oh.
doorstep. I was calling in my mind. I was calling Noel Gallagher and Bono. We did play with a band called The National, which is a great American success band. If you're familiar with Barack Obama's his inauguration songs, those
Yeah.
were by The National. Long story short, I ended up doing some life coaching. Learned
Uh-huh.
about that I really should be working with in cause-based stuff. Led
Yeah.
me into working in adult literacy. And then that gave me an opportunity to work through this amazing organization that I worked with in Toronto called PTP, an adult literacy place, to be able to do some work through a project that they had with the Office of Learning and Essential Skills to write a book on
Mhm.
getting people who were on the margins into skilled trades and how to do that. Because that was one of the priorities at the time, was to try to see here's this with skilled labor shortage, and it's a good thing we don't have that any longer. I'm joking. But so how to get these people into positions where they could train. And through that, I got a chance to teach at George Brown College in Toronto.
Mhm.
And then subsequently then ended up working to lead departments there, working with lots of wonderful people, amazing teachers reporting in. We had a adult literacy program, special programs for community initiatives, and so on. So, long story short, that was what led the foundation. Through that, I started to see some of those experiences pave the way to see my experiences as someone who was trying to find my way. I was very fortunate. I had, a good foundation of people in my corner to help me to navigate my paths forward, and some other people didn't. But some of the other challenges that I would see are very evergreen. Um, Individuals being left behind, and I was starting to see economic opportunities that were not being realized locally and nationally because of not really fundamentally addressing in a really meaningful way skills and how those play a role in helping to unglue people from experiences and so on. So I left the college a few years ago. I started up an e-learning company actually in 2015, which is still going. It's great. I committed to accessibility and great experiences. But KnowMeQ came out. We incorporated in 2020, but we had our first contract in 2022, actually two contracts, one with the municipality in Richmond Hill and another national project with under a federal group working with a tremendous group called NGen, this advanced manufacturing supercluster. And our assessments and our experiences that were used across the country by hundreds of companies. So we can get into KnowMeQ in just a second, but
Oh, yes.
that's a little bit of a background in terms of how I got here.
So
Well,
from kinesiology, and then you said, okay,
business.
this is clearly not for me. Then switch to business, and that clearly was for you. But then that business that business degree,
Mhm.
you took you into the sort of post or the adult literary education,
Yeah.
and essentially KnowMeQ as a concept emerged from combining these two, realizing the opportunity that exists sort of at that intersection between how do you help adult adults improve their skill sets and then lighting up the business angle to it, I guess,
Yeah.
right?
Ultimately, what I've discovered in probably all of the experiences that I've had um, professionally and socially is I have a pretty wild imagination, and the individuals at the community literacy organization and the college I was at really tapped into that. I was able to build relationships with um, provincial and federal stakeholders and local people, and within the college to be able to propose some pretty wild ideas. They ended up being financially fruitful for those institutions as well. But I saw some opportunities that were, outside of my purview in those institutions that I could have, I really wanted to take a
Yeah.
hold of, and a credit to my parents who always sort of instilled in my brother and myself the belief in that we can do anything, and not in a in a very I guess in a really celebratory way, that they believed in us, and we were able to not have a ceiling on our ideas. And so that's where I just I'm also a pragmatist. I needed to get some education under my belt. I ended up going to do grad studies at the University of Toronto's Ontario Institute for Studies in Education, OISE, which is one of the top education schools for graduate studies in the world, and learned from really great people there as well. But yeah, I just had this passion to be able to go back to doing something creative, and I think that I've had this entrepreneurial seed in my body since my brother and I had a paper route when we were 6, shoveling driveways and postering the neighborhood with signs saying, "I'll do anything for money, cut your lawn, trim your dog's nails, whatever it needs to be, I'll do it." And so that's what I
There we go. It was meant to be.
meant to be.
Yes. So Matt, KnowMeQ, very interesting name.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're gonna touch on that in a moment. Can you describe, like, what is the problem that you've identified that led you to creating a company to solve it?
You got it. So I remember very clearly. I was asked to go to Ottawa to participate in a design jam that the federal government was having in Ottawa. And I was going to be flying after work to Ottawa to be part of this thing. And it was the idea at the time was, how do we support this future of work that everyone's talking about? And this was in 2018. And when I was
This is pre-pandemic, obviously.
Pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as I was driving to the airport, I was listening to a feature on the news, CFRB in Toronto, saying that 38% of companies in Canada can't service the contracts that are coming in because they don't have enough skilled workers. And I was thinking about my experiences in working at the college and also in employment services. So it was in a literacy programs, which are designed for people to get into either a post-secondary program or to upskill, to get into post-secondary or employment or apprenticeship. And that I knew that those programs weren't necessarily they and the employment service programs, as large providers of potential skilled labor, potential people, they were only thin slicing who the persons were. You write an assessment for writing or reading for a literacy program, and you would maybe do a resume and maybe a personality assessment for an employment service program, update that. But I would see it time and time again where people who are going through these programs were coming back again, got a job, got fired, came back. And what was clear to me was that we were not getting to the heart of it. We were not providing people with really good analysis of what their skills are, recognizing that all of us have a composite of skills that make us who we are and experiences. And there are things that help us to be successful in the roles that we do. And there are things that also hold us back. But we weren't giving these individuals all of the information about themselves. And as a result, they kept repeating the same mistakes over and over again. And I felt that it was kind of unfair. I know, I mean, I think it's really unfair, quite honestly, and that we're not helping the individuals in really holistic ways. And so I thought, well, that's novel. So I went to this design jam in Ottawa, and there was like, how do we support people, and do we need to get better learning management systems? Do we need to get flying cars? Do we need to inject people with the blue pill or the red pill? No, it's a really simple solution. And it was, came down to some very long-standing challenges that have been present since 1994, in fact, across all of the OECD countries, where 1 in 2 workers lack the functional and literacy skills to meet the core demands of their jobs. And if you
Mm.
know, sort of studying skills themselves, skills are very much scaffolding sort of experiences. And if you don't, so things build on one another, but they all
Yeah.
ultimately start from the foundational level. If you don't have strong foundational skills in reading, that means your ability to decode text, to detect inference, and to make correct inferencing, then you can't problem solve at a very, your ability to problem solve becomes very rudimentary.
Yeah.
You can't then engage with numeracy issues also because you have that is an impasse. So
Yeah, you
irrespective
cannot
of
you
what,
cannot layer more
abs
complex skill sets if the foundations are weak, right?
absolutely. And so then I thought, well, at the design jam, which we ended up winning, which was kind of based on the concept of it, it laid the foundation for what was to become KnowMeQ. And this is something that I've unfortunately been thinking about every single day since that day when I was going there. I was like, oh, I can't lose this thing. It's just in my head. I can't get it out for good or for bad. But it became it became a principled universal truth that if we are really committed to helping people to advance, which our economies need,
Yeah.
which companies need, families need, individuals need, we need to at least provide people with starting places. And so the idea
Mm.
principally is if you don't know where you're starting from, it's impossible to know where you can go. And so with that as a sort of a, as a principled statement, when we're coming down to naming KnowMeQ, it became somewhat of a, a play on that. And looking at the Delphic maxim of know thyself. It's one of those things that, when you think about things, and I put this in, sort of in a cheesy way, but we know that there's EQ for emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
We know that there's IQ that's longstanding for, intelligence quotient.
Yeah.
But to me, the most important thing, and the thing that I would love to impart to any person, whether it's my son or to anybody that I meet, is I really hope that in your life's journey, you get to know yourself and to enrich yourself. Because if you don't know yourself, it becomes a difficult thing for you to grow. And what we're taking on as a challenge is to provide individuals with an opportunity to know themselves through a variety of a wide range of composite assessments that are science validated. So we do measure things like the functional literacy and numeracy, problem solving, and digital competencies. Those are sort of the core aspects of things, and they're aligned in Canada to the Skills for Success framework. We also measure Big Five personality, which is very, very true. Those things have been done for 150 years, tried and true. We created our own with psychometricians for all these assessments from Canada, the United States. We also measure emotional intelligence, social emotional learning. I don't know if I mentioned digital competencies. We measure that as part of the core
So
skills. And
let's list them out because I'm really curious to know like
sure.
what are the categories of these assessments that
Mhm.
that you offer.
Yeah.
So you said first basic literacy.
So I would categorize these functional assessments in literacy. So it's reading, numeracy, problem solving, and digital competencies. Those are, if you don't have those things, and starting with the most important stuff, the reading assessment, the reading
Yeah.
levels, that becomes the gateway for everything else. Then you can categorize things, the next assessments, as soft skills. And I know that there's different terms that are being floated right now to replace the term, but conventionally people understand what soft skills are. Those
Yeah.
are the skills which help you to engage uh, with others in better, how I can grow and learn and adapt. And so that's when emotional intelligence comes in. The Big Five personality assessments, it stands for OCEAN, which is openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, assertiveness, and neuroticism. Um, Paint a picture of the person as well.
Yeah.
Those help to refer. Social and emotional learning different pieces as well. And then adaptability. We have 6 measures of adaptability. Now, what we do with all of these assessments, we've added a new Q to the level, and we have a provisional patent out for this, but we put these assessments through an aggregate adaptability quotient measure. So, and all things being equal, the future of work is uncertain. People need to recognize how they're going to be able to succeed, or what are their obstacles in their future that are going to present challenges. So when we put all these things together, it can principally, number one, provide individuals with an opportunity to see some of their skills across the levels. I didn't know that this is what my reading score was. That does explain things, or I didn't know why I was always getting fired for being late. Maybe this explains things, or I didn't know why I was always being successful in things, or maybe I can put my finger on I work well with others, or I understand the emotions of others and my perception skills and so on. And it helps to shine lights in those areas, because when you start those areas, then it becomes, a bit more. And all of the great thing about all these areas is that they can all change. Nothing is carved in stone. But they provide a deeper analysis than some of the other tools which are being used, which sort of points you or paints you or into a corner. And some of them also they take liberties with sort of taking some of these really well-established frameworks, like the Big Five personality assessments framework, and they change the name to be something like floating ducks or screaming eagles or whatever. As soon as you get away from those core measures, you start taking liberties, and it becomes less empirically valid. And I think that that's an important thing. So our assessments align to the international standards that PIAC has in OECD, and then of course domestically here in Canada. So those became, for us as a company, the core pieces of our work. As we were growing out this, we started to see greater applications for being able to say, okay, if you were a mid-career shifter, if you knew that there was going to be a job change for you, what kind of information could you get from this? And I think one of the truisms also is that we don't know what we don't know. And it's also, in sort of knowing a little bit about the brain, our ability to make changes and plan our future is different when we're in calm state versus when we're adrenalized. If we've been laid off and we are in fight or flight mode, we won't our assessment results will be very different than if we were in a job and looking to mid-career shift. And I think that this is an important thing for outplacement agencies or companies who know that there are companies or colleges or labor action centers who know that there's going to be people going to be laid off. Start that process earlier than when the people they're 2 weeks into being laid off to plan their next steps. So we built out a career recommender tool, which ultimately takes the individual's results and their skills from across a variety of measures, and it helps them to litmus test what their skills look like versus jobs of tomorrow, and looks at gap areas. So if I was looking to go into finance or hospitality or something, I would have different jobs and careers based on hundreds of thousands of participants' results and skills to say, here's where my skills are relative to those things, and to be able to achieve, and also a gap analysis. And we put those together, these pieces, plus a career profiling tool, into what we call Johari, which is a term that two researchers put together with their names combined, and it made Johari. But Johari's window is the concept. If you look through Johari's window, you can see your blind spots. And so that's an opportunity for individuals to be able to identify not only what my skills are today in the jobs but you can see some of these pieces, how they translate. And again, you put those things together to say, okay, gaps, opportunities, strengths, and so on, you can paint that out. And so that's where we went. And the next piece of our company, we're also seeing, well, there was a bit of shake up, let's be honest, in post-secondary worlds and in the world writ large, but in particular in Canada and the United States, we can speak to. And when we're looking at how to empower the economy and how companies are constantly talking about labor shortages and of course looking at that common statistic that's since 1994 that 50% of people or companies are lacking have only people can 50% of the workers can't meet the core demands of their job. Well, maybe that might be an opportunity for upskilling within the organization.
Yeah.
Maybe for individuals who are going into doing that career pivot, they could leverage some professional upskilling at an accredited institution. And so we started to think about some of my experiences at a college and at the college I was at, and recognized that there was a process in Canada, has different names in different jurisdictions, but prior learning assessment and recognition is a common refrain term. And the process is very labored, but in short, what it is to be able to provide individuals with an opportunity to gain credit at a post-secondary institution, secure credit for a course or multiple courses based on their previous certifications or education experiences or work. And the goal is to shave a credit or two off their journey so that they can go back into the workforce faster. Now, what we did is, as a company, is we looked at the process and the challenges for this how it's done here and in the United States. And we were in our sort of outreach and discussions, we discovered that that process can take for a single credit up to a year for a review. It's never anyone's first priority to do this work. And what that does is it hinders the opportunity for that individual to be an applicant for this process and then convert. I mean, I can't think of what I would have done a year ago today if I would have submitted an application for something. I would have forgot about it.
Yeah.
And for our economy, that's a challenge. For the post-secondary institutions, in particular for community colleges and private career colleges, those are the lifeblood of each community.
Yeah.
And they are who industry links with for growth and for supplies of people and potentially to build in relationships for their individuals for upskilling. Industry needs to have a faster solution, and they need colleges to be part of that upskilling journey, to be able to get people into roles, to retain workers. Because that's another piece of the work that we do, is that we recognize that in talking to companies that they need to have people get from here, this level of skill, to the next level of skill to adapt to new roles, because there's been an absence of, in particular, manufacturing, supply chain, massive groups. No one's applying for jobs there. And so companies need to retain workers, and the way that they can retain workers is help them plan for the next jobs and to be successful.
And at the end of the day, it really all boils down to the skills, is what I'm hearing, right?
Absolutely.
So it's almost like, I don't know if this is correct or incorrect, but how I'm interpreting what you're saying is that we don't have a labor shortage, we have a skill shortage.
Yeah.
And our labor needs to actually have the right skill sets for the jobs of today and jobs of tomorrow. And left on its own devices, many people will be lost because
100%.
They actually do not know where they are starting from. They might have incorrect perceptions of their own skills. And what you're doing is you're helping them actually come to the realization of what truly is their current skill set, where are the strengths, where are the opportunities for improvement, where might be blind spots.
Mhm.
Then you can work with the organizations to define what are the required skill sets for that
Mhm.
job, aspirational job, and that's the gap that now you can help an individual say, okay, so here you are, this is where you need to be, these are the gaps, these are the strengths,
Mhm.
leverage your strengths to close your gaps to get you ready. Is that kind of
Uh, Perfectly said. There is a what we've what we've and I knew this, I have known this for some time. But what we've decided to do is to build each of our solutions, including this Archie AI credit for prior learning tool, which we built with the Vector Institute as well, with Jeffrey Hinton's team.
yeah.
Uh, but so all of these tools are Career Recommender, our assessments, Archie, that combined Johari framework tool. They all are speaking in the same skills and competency taxonomy that is well defined, well understood internationally, that Canada is a signatory to, United States, the UK, all the OECD countries, that skilled trades uses, that career colleges and community colleges in Canada, United States leverage and talk about for their learning outcomes, because the learning outcomes at colleges are defined by program outcomes. Program outcomes are referred to as vocational learning outcomes, which are tied to, in the United States, the Department of Labor, here in Canada, to our NAICS and NOC codes.
Hmm.
We are talking about here and this is where I think the unpacking of things has become really possible through AI, because it is matching words. It's this is this is that.
Yeah.
And that has the ability to enable greater mobility of individuals. And I think that what we're talking about here in this country now about internal barriers between provinces,
Yeah.
those are some of the things that are impeding that, is the worker mobility. If I'm a carpenter here in Ontario versus going to Manitoba, it may not be recognized. There are conventional standards which probably should be evaluated commonly. And I think that when we look at this, if you were to put an AI model across leveraging, looking at learning outcomes and vocational experiences and so on, there is a through line,
Yeah.
100% through line that people have over time, for good intentions, their own good intentions, change the word slightly to say that ours is kind of different. The truth is, when we're talking about skills are about demonstration and there should be consistency in terms of, I understand it like this, you understand it like that. AI takes out some of that bias.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is trying to say that this is a consistent level of understanding things that goes from skill assessments all across uh, career planning and so on. And then now we have this solution that helps individuals to leverage their previous work experiences by putting their resume in our platform, working with our partner colleges to be able to say, hey, you remember how it took over a year or up to a year for someone to evaluate one course
Yeah.
using, all sorts of data costing hundreds of dollars? No, you know what? This platform can do it in about 5 seconds, and you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
get multiple credits. And that can really change the experiences for individuals to be able to say, okay, Matt's got to go back to work. I need to plan to go to upskill. If I can get 5 or 6 or 7 credits from my previous experiences, all of a sudden I can work part-time. I don't have
Yeah.
to indenture my family. I can start abbreviating that journey as well. We need people working, and
And the
that's what
confidence boost that people will get from that, just purely confidence boost, right?
100%.
Huh.
Well, and that in fact is one of the big pieces that um, different student retention projects that I was involved in, fortunately, in my time at the college. But among them is, if you can demonstrate to an individual that they belong, that you're giving them, you recognize that they have histories that are complementary, that are going to advantage them. And that concierge, that white glove concierge service helps people to have that develop confidence that, hey, they care about me. They know that I've got skills. And that for a person who's been out of school for many years, maybe you've had a broken history of education and work, but you're getting a couple credits, that's wind in your sails to
Of
push
course,
you forward. And
of
we
course.
need
It's
more,
almost like
again,
it's almost like people who can afford coaches, they can hire coaches. This is actually a version of self-coaching almost,
mhm,
to
mhm,
help you navigate, help you first of all validate what you have accomplished, get that recognized. That
yep,
will just by osmosis should result in additional pride and confidence, and then it'll
mhm,
help navigate you to where your particular skill set combination would actually be of value, right?
yep,
Where so this is almost like it's a process of self-coaching kind of thing, right?
yep. I
So,
think that the idea is that people can use our different assessments over time, and we very much want to make our assessments. If you were working with a company that used our assessments, to be able to take your assessment results if you're moving to somewhere else as well. That's kind of a piece. Our Archie credit for prior learning tool, which is and used by colleges in Canada, the United States. It's uh, it's something that people can continue to update
yeah,
over time.
yeah,
And that's the idea. And we are going to be building more tools in that coaching vein because it's so important. And I think that not everybody has someone who they can lean on for advice or can help them to navigate. And often, and in particular, for communities who are very marginalized, their perspective outcomes for moving through things is often hindered by their environment, by
of course,
not having
of
positive
course.
mentors who have done that, been there, done that. And that's a disadvantage to individuals. Again, and I keep coming back to this, but this country, it's a reset time for us. And we need to get everybody working. This is a most incredible country. When you drive around this beautiful, each of the provinces and different municipalities here, you see the hard work that's gone into paving the roads, to keeping the putting together the infrastructure that we take for granted each day. And we need people moving forward. This isn't a really huge time right now for us to be able to set the tone for everybody to continue to upskill, because there is a hegemony of lifelong learning that's, as you mentioned, like the people who can afford the coaches, the C-level suites, C-suite people are get the professional development. It's
Yeah,
not, and we're really good at getting co-op opportunities for students, but what about everyone
what's the
else?
middle? Yeah, what about the middle?
99% of the population in the workforce. Those
Correct.
folks need to continuously upskill. And our tool can work with as a conduit between institutions to employers to say, everyone can do this credit at a time to be able to move forward. And that's continuous lifelong learning. So important.
Absolutely. So, Matt, let's talk a little bit about the business of KnowMeQ. So,
Mhm.
um, I would be curious to know, like, who are your customers? Who are your buyers? Like, to whom does KnowMeQ actually sell the services? Can you describe us, like, what is the actual business model?
For sure. So, we have enterprise tools. So we have our assessments and we have Archie. Um, we are we are emphasizing right now the the assessment solutions for working with government groups, so employment service organizations in different provinces, for instance, to be able to do that, or larger groups who can be able to who have contracts with municipalities and the provinces in across the country to administer our solutions. They're a good fit for programs like in Ontario, the Better Jobs Ontario platform for laid off workers and so on. That's who we want to start working with in downstream. We are working with for our Archie client product with colleges and with provincial groups directly, and in universities as well in both Canada and the United States. And so that is our tool which we are really pushing for. There's a very acute need right now. I think that what we are seeing um, with for the institutions, but I think for the economy in general, there's lots of individuals who are aware that there's going to be layoffs coming up across different sectors, and being able to get people into training quickly is important. There are lots of statistics that show that the longer individuals are out of work, the more likely that will be a persistent pattern. And we have just entered into sort of hyper speed, it feels like, relative to even 2021 or 2022. The speed of change, technology displacing jobs like crazy.
Oh, yeah.
We need to be able to help individuals to develop adaptability skills and new credentials for new roles, so that individuals they're going to be able to re-enter workforce scenarios where they're going to be making the same amount or more than they were before they were laid off.
So
So,
what
so
I heard
we,
is that the primary client at this, up until now at least, have been
Mhm,
multiple layers of governments that are looking to help people who may not be at work, unemployed, to get employment. So they're
mhm,
leveraging KnowMeQ to help them understand their skill sets, do the assessments, map them to potential job opportunities, career recommendations you mentioned.
mhm, mhm.
So big client base would be governments serving Canadians, helping
Yeah.
them find jobs.
Mhm,
And you mentioned post-secondary institutions as well, right?
mhm, mhm.
Do you see a scenario, or I just don't know what to ask. Would your tool be applicable to corporations as well for them to
Yeah,
use
of
in?
course. Absolutely. Yeah. So the assessments are a great fit for corporations, as is Archie as well. And so corporations are interested in working with us for this. We haven't activated any of those yet with corporations, but I think it's in particular, manufacturing, supply chain, any of those industries who have had they know that their workforce has got to advance if they're going to a dark warehouse, for instance. How do you identify who can be taking on the roles of tomorrow? A CEO from a large logistics company said to me, I haven't had someone apply to work in our warehouse for 18 months, and I know that I've got an aging workforce. I don't even know who can do the next job in my team. How do I determine that? And that's a scary prospect.
So in other words, so and government, by the way, major employer.
Mhm.
So not only would your tool be applicable for the government's educational programs, it'll be equally applicable for the government itself.
Yeah.
Figure out, you know, about its own workforce, right? So that
100%. And then I would say that that's the truth also for colleges who are laying off people. I know it's more acute here in Ontario because there was a large number of international students who were not part of this year's enrollment list, and that's led to a lot of layoffs and program closures. But
yeah.
colleges are planning layoffs right now for staff, unfortunately. And this is something that I think, to catch the ear of a president of an institution, or that I think this would be a perfect time to be able to do some assessments with the staff themselves, even look at using our Archie credit for prior learning tool or CPL tool to be able to say, maybe within that workforce who's going to be laid off, maybe we can give some of these people, or all of them, can qualify for programmed courses at our institution, so they can begin that upskilling process before their layoff happens in August or whenever. And it helps keep some of the lights on at the institution. It's a sort of like a
Yeah, yeah,
vertically
see.
integrated
Yeah, yeah.
solution.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Um, so chief HR officer, chief human resources officers, chief talent officers would also be obviously right the prime
Uh-huh. Totally.
main buyer, and the
Mhm.
consumer, of course, are the actual individuals who are going through the program.
Mhm.
So what a wonderful what a wonderful story. What a great untapped need. And I love that you are building the business to solve for that need. Uh, I would be curious. So obviously, this conversation that we are having under the banner of Canada's Got Tech Talent is all about Canadian tech companies who are growing and solving these real life problems. I would be very curious to hear your experience being a co-founder of a tech company, effectively. What was that process like for you? What have you learned? What would you do differently? What did you find worked well from both, you know, regulations to other things? What didn't work well?
Great questions. Oh man. Well, if you're not careful, mistakes can be very expensive. And
Good lesson
I
to learn.
yeah, I was very fortunate to have the support of my a co-founder for my e-learning business to be able to saddle some of the initial investment for KnowMeQ with that. So that became something that it's now paid back. But that was initial focus groups, development efforts that went nowhere.
Mm,
Um, uh, the different ways, keeping people on as contract freelancers for ideas and so on, and there are cheaper ways of doing things that I learned to do. I wasn't I've always been technical. I've had technical skills and interest in technology. But I was late starting into this, much later, despite my youthful appearance. I'll have you know that I'm in my late 20. No, I'm
20s.
joking. Can you imagine? That would be great. No, I'm much older than most people starting this, going down this path, and doing that, with a family and the the need that they have to eat and to have
Yep.
a roof over their heads.
Yes.
It sort of raised the stakes, and so I was doing the beginnings of this planning. Um, you know, Balancing another company and trying to keep things going. And it was so it took a little bit longer possibly and was more expensive definitely than others. So but I'm fairly good at networking and getting to learn who is what the ecosystem is. So I got to meet different supporting groups, like some of the regional innovation centers here in Ontario. Got to build relationships with them. Um, I got a relationship set up with NRC IRAP, and but I think that the biggest lesson that I learned early on, and I learned this with my first company, was that establishing a good financial framework for the business is critical, and having good cost control centers in the form of having systems and, but most importantly, the right people involved, and then also legal. It was important. We were looking at the need to establish a defensibility framework that for developing technologies that become essentially properties and distinct assets that can be built, grown, protected, and sold as part of the business or independent of the business. And so we needed to be able to set those things out. And I wouldn't know where to begin with that, but my accounting team and lawyers certainly have that ability. And so we got to leverage some of those experiences and, you know, but working with great people, there's no replacement in understanding who shares a vision
Hmm.
for the vision for the business, is critically important. And so I've been really fortunate to have great co-founders who bring, they know what their skills are, and they also are very aware of what my blind spots are. And so they are collectively, we can cover things. And I think that that's why our future is so bright as a company. We're we're under no false impression that we're trying to tackle a small problem. This is an evergreen challenge, and I think it's among the most important challenges of the day. You know, it fits in with productivity is one of the challenges that's
Absolutely.
hindering Canada. We address
100%.
that.
100%.
Mobility and growth.
100%.
So yeah.
You are right at the tip of the wave, and the wave is upon us. Like it's gonna like I can clearly see the opportunity in front of you, where you know
Mhm.
probably half of our population, 20 million people, probably more, 30 million people, probably could be active users of your solutions,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
where the the economy that we are in, this concept of life jobs for life, I don't think that's relevant anymore. People are going to be finding themselves in a continuous cycle of learning, reskilling, learning, reskilling, learning, reskilling, and
Mhm.
that's just the way things are going to be, I think.
Absolutely. And,
Right?
and and I would say that in what they need as you're doing this, um, what we are suggesting is along the way, you need to get accreditation to like
Yeah,
a climber who's climbing up the wall, putting your carabiner in, so no one can take
yeah,
that away. Once you're in that wall, you
that's
can't
right.
fall, you can't, so this is about helping people to ladder up
Yeah,
constantly. We need that. And I think it's a my feeling is that this is the time that this country needs to reset our narrative. There needs to be more focused on achievement. It needs to be more focused on, as opposed to auditing and navel gazing. We need to be more focused on and I wrote an article today in on LinkedIn, but on creating. Very clearly we have bright people here. And I think that we need to be able to get out from underneath the sunshade and to be able to grab some sunshine and to be able to embrace it with bright ideas. And I think that what that means from an innovation perspective is that the purse strings need to be opened up. If you're an NRC IRAP, you need to be spending more money and taking more risks because there are people who are at risk in their startups, innovation companies of going out of business because they can't get the traction, but they need that to get going. Venture dollars are very dry in this country. Private equity dollars are very dry as well, everywhere. And so, what do we need? It's a Keynesian economics perspective to be able to, instead of going into, turtling in times of austerity and uncertainty, it's about spending on wisely on investment through innovation to be able to champion the people who are in groups of people who are sticking their necks out on the line because every single sector right now is going to have changes because of AI. Every single sector is going to have changes in attrition
yeah.
because of global shifts in the economy and demand and so on. I don't think that we should spend a single second trying to point south and saying these people should treat us better. No, we need to be
Looking at
focusing on
ourselves.
ourselves, stay in our lane, looking at what we can do and do it really well. That's what we have control over. That's truly what it is. And I don't think that it's helpful for us to be talking about yesterday or talking about tomorrow. Just talk about today.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. This is, yeah, you clearly have identified a real challenge that is cutting across the whole economy. And the fact that AI is rapidly disrupting work, and it's going to clearly result in armies of people who will find themselves by their choice or not their choice out there without their previous jobs, that actually just, if anything, just puts a spotlight of how critically important what you're doing is.
And
Um,
if I could just you triggered one thing for me, my brother. If I could just one of the key parts of this country and in the United States, which I think, and this is what was a real driver for our Archie credit for prior learning tool, was recognizing that our valued members of the armed services and Air Force, Navy
yeah,
have an absolute impossible time integrating into careers,
yeah,
civilian life,
yeah,
because of that taxonomy that we talked about before. They have in the military, in the US and in Canada and the UK, their own
yeah,
competency framework.
yeah, yeah,
Our company has built out the cipher to be able to translate that
yeah, yeah.
to colleges and university course credits. If you are a university or college leader in Canada, the United States, and you are watching this, please email me at matt@knowmeq.com. I will get you in to be the leader in supporting transitions for military veterans to your institution, and you will be your provincial hero. I promise you.
This is
Be the
fantastic.
first.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Matt, this was really awesome. Thank you very much for finding the time to be with me and us today. As you know, we're going to record. Has been recorded. Very soon, I'll post it on YouTube, and I'll, of course, share the link. Um, Clearly, you are addressing what is very, very real, very, very significant challenge, and you're converting that into opportunity. What a wonderful story! Thank you very much. Thank you
My
for what
true.
you're doing, and I very much look forward to staying connected with you and
Yes.
hearing and seeing how the how KnowMeQ expands, and perhaps have you come back in the
Oh, I'd love
future
to.
to tell the
Absolutely.
story. Yes, real
My
pleasure.
my my most sincere pleasure. Thanks to you and to your listeners and viewers. Continued growth, Canada. Let's kick butt.
Let's kick back indeed. Onwards and
Okay.
upwards.
Cheers, bro.
Thank you, Matt. All the best. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Thank you.